It's showtime. Welcome to the show. It is 7 p.m. in state-controlled Britain. Here we are on a Sunday, and it's the 1st of June. I hope June is busting out all over for you, and it's nice and sunny wherever you are, or it's weather that you like, by the way, because I can't assume that you like sunshine. You might like it being mild. But yeah, just a couple of bits to say. Firstly, we're waiting for the world's top nutritionist to appear. But for those of you that don't know, or why I say things about state-controlled Britain or all that sort of stuff, I did have a complaint. Somebody said it's a nutrition show. Why are you talking about that? Well, I live in the UK, and it's not a great time to be in the UK at the moment. That's why I do that, because I am one of those people that doesn't agree with the mainstream. And there is a young lady in prison being held hostage, basically, by the government, because it's not about justice or law, for a tweet. Yeah. Now, that could be me. So I need to bring that to people's attention, because that's quite scary. What she put, when you compare it to people who are attacking children or doing absolutely horrific crimes, and this is why I say about the two-tier justice, and sorry to be boring, but that's why I mention it, because there are people doing what I would consider proper actual crimes, not having that sort of punishment. So that's a two-tier system, which is completely and utterly driven by the government to control people like me, just a normal person who wants to say what the truth is. So it's scary. So I have to publicize it, because how does that time with food? Because I want to be able to talk about red meat. I want to be able to talk about the plant-based agenda. And that's going against the narrative. And I don't want to get to the point where I'm not allowed to say that government minister that was talking about X, Y, and Z. I think he's atrocious and should be locked up, and then find myself locked up. So, it makes sense to actually publicize that sort of thing. And there you go. You see, 2 minutes in, wasted loads of time. When the person complained, I actually was it was an hour show, and I spoke for 29 seconds like that. And it's always a little bit tongue in cheek at the beginning. But anyway, that's why I talk about that. It's really bad. The public health collaboration was over the weekend, which I attended. And, it was interesting to see people. I don't really think I will go again. There's 3 years running I've gone now. And I feel like, they're doing a good job there. But it needs more variation in speakers. The guest speakers are always the things I go for. I go for the guests, because I've heard the other people, and although they may have different subjects, I like people who are sort of experts in a field. Like so they had Tom Seafried talking about cancer as a metabolic disease, not a genetic disease. Now that was brilliant. He got a standing ovation. So that was really good. And Eric Westman, was fantastic on the Saturday. Absolutely brilliant information. So that's the sort of thing I think there should be more of, and there should be possibly less of the people that we see every single time in that situation. I think sometimes also, actually talking about Thomas Seafried's, he was due to speak at a particular time on Sunday this morning. I had a lot of traveling, by the way, so I traveled down, 3 trains and 2 cabs and all this sort of stuff. Stayed at the wonderful Dr. Abs's place. So that was, thank you, Dr. Abs, shout out there for your generosity. That helped keep the costs down. But when someone is booked to talk at a particular time, he was first up of the guests on this morning, and he actually said this out loud, by the way, so it's not me being annoying. But if you've got a guest which you've flown from Boston, which is exactly the point he made in front of everybody when he was shown the card to wrap up 5 minutes, don't overrun beforehand and talk about your app. Although the app is admirable, I think it's a little bit tone deaf. If you've got this big guest and you've flown them in from Boston, talk about your app later. And certainly don't overrun talking about your app and then have the guest on and then shut him down, early, or give him the 5-minute sign. And rightfully, he said, he actually said that. You got me all the way from Boston to give me 5 minutes, a 5-minute warning when you've overrun at the beginning. He gave me 5 minutes, and it was such a brilliant presentation. And obviously, cancer is an amazingly interesting area with all the stats and so much information pouring out the screen. So Sam, who had the thing, did actually give him 10 minutes, but shouldn't have been done in the first place. So that was, one of those things that I think sometimes they're so interested in their own things that they maybe get a little bit tone deaf to what actually is happening in the room. So personally, I would have not talked about the app for so long. I would have put my guest on first, stuck to the agenda, and then talked about the app. Which is a shame because the point of the app is also really good. I've no issues with talking about it because obviously that's part and parcel of why you're doing the conference, to get the applications that you're doing out there to the public. Why that is good is because it's an app that will measure lifestyle measures and how good they are. So the constant stream of data. That's it. We want that. We need more evidence of lifestyle making a difference. So the app's really good, but it was definitely tone deaf, personally. And I'm allowed to use that phrase because I am deaf. So that, there's nothing wrong with saying that. But that was one of the things. The other thing, they spoke about GLP-1 agonists. And I think this is where doctors and people in the medical profession do show that is very embedded about talking about medications, because there's still this sort of propensity to think, there are instances where it's really good, but they didn't they talk about some of the side effects. Like 82 people have died from these GLP-1 agonist jabs. They're calling it the fat jab in the mainstream media. Which won't last long because the pharmaceuticals own the mainstream media. So they'll definitely get rid of that terminology, because now they've got a drug that can get rid of obesity. You don't see the body positivity stuff anymore because the pharmaceutical basically cartel run everything. Now they've got a drug that can get fat off people. We don't see anyone talking about healthy at any size. It's basically that's how it works. So they didn't talk about, even though they had a section on GLP-1, they didn't talk about the fact that a lot of the weight loss in lots of research shows that you're losing muscle and bone as well. Maybe up to as much as 40% of the weight loss is muscle and bone, and that's a seriously bad side effect. But especially for someone like my age at 61, getting bone and muscle back, and certainly if like in the UK there is a 2-year limit on taking these GLP-1 agonists. When you come off, what's going to happen after that? So it was interesting. I mentioned that I was, staying with Dr. Ab, so he wasn't at the conference. That was just a lunch that we'd sort of arranged before the conference, and very serendipitous. So it was good. And he was talking about the fact that he has prescribed it on 4 occasions, and the choice has been losing that weight or dying. Well, maybe at that point, maybe it is justified, but I still feel that it needs to be really a serious justification to go down that route, because I do think it's not a root cause thing. Again, I'll shout out to Dr. Abs, how he talks. It's quite interesting. He was saying about metformin. I mean, that's my background, specialist practitioner of obesity and diabetes, and people on metformin, and they think that's magical. Well, those people didn't have a metformin deficiency. A metformin deficiency is not the cause of diabetes. So you're not really getting to root cause. It's just a band-aid. It's just something. But we need to get to root cause. Of course, the root cause being eating too many carbohydrates. So there you go. Still waiting for Richard to appear, which is why I'm holding back on the questions. Let's have a look. Oh, Jonathan, by the way, GLP-1s are causing muscle and bone loss because people become idle and don't eat enough protein. The user group is generally lazier folk, less likely to train, etc. Yeah, that's definitely one of the things. But I do feel that we need to acknowledge that is happening, because people, the rest of the group, Jonathan, are also like people are like that, sadly, in the mainstream. So we've got to compare apples to apples. Now, you're absolutely right, and that's exactly why that should be in there, isn't it? you're a smart guy, so you know that I'm actually supporting what you say. Because if you don't mention it, it's not on the table at all. I think training, weight training and protein is something everybody should do, but especially if you're in danger of losing your muscle and losing your bone density. So when you talk about GLP-1s, that should be mentioned as a side effect, and definitely that once you stop the drugs, you should continue that good behavior. And that's the thing. So actually what we're doing, go back to root cause, aren't we? We're going back to sort your life out, sort your, take responsibility of your life. I wasn't really going to share this. Sadly, I lost my sister over the weekend as well. She passed away. So if I've seen a little bit out of it, it's because I am. Right. That was from a burst blood vessel in the brain, actually. She'd been in a coma for a couple of weeks. And sadly, Sunday morning, this morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, I woken up to a message from my middle sister. I had 3 sisters. I've got 3 sisters. I spoke in the past tense already there. Yes, middle sister. So this was the youngest sister. I'm the youngest. Anyway, right. So let's get rid of that. I don't want to be too maudling. So still no Richard. So we will hopefully also going to have Phil Escott pop in to talk about some of his events, but he's not here. Right, here we go. So let's show this one. Somebody new to carnivore. I'm going to say Zayana, maybe. I don't know how to pronounce that. I do apologize if I've just ruined the way your beautiful name. It's beautiful as a written word there. So anyway, right. How does taking ketones help? Not sure how to tell when I'm in ketosis. Eat 3 meat sticks at 1 p.m. and grass-fed ground beef or chuck roast at 6 p.m. So that's an interesting eating window there, 5 hours, which means you're going to be 19 hours fast or 18 hours fasted. So that's pretty good, or 18.6, maybe we'll call that. New to carnivore month, just wanting to thank you both for all you do, learning so much and starting to heal and appreciate you. That's great. Well, ketones. Well, when you start, if you're in the first month, you will be looking at how do you know if you're in ketosis or going towards ketosis. Frequent urination and increased thirst can happen, and that's because when you come off the carbohydrates, you are expelling carbohydrate. Glycogen is being expelled, which is why you lose water weight, because for every molecule of glucose, you have 3 molecules of water, which is also why you might have some electrolyte issues, and you may feel dehydrated. You might have some dry skin and all that because your fluid balance is being sorted out. Really, you're going to what you should be. So water retention isn't normal. Sadly, when you eat a lot of carbs, you get that carb face, don't you, where it all blows up. So that would be some of the ways to find or work out if you're in ketosis. Of course, the other way is to get a meter, a glucose ketone meter. I use Keto Mojo, and it is fantastic. Anyway, I've got a little guest who's going to pop in, Phil Westcott. Hello, Phil.
Hello. I'm so sorry I'm late. My call ran over.
Okay. Well, I've been bad mouthing you, of course.
Hey?
I've been bad mouthing you, of course.
Of course, yes, of course. And
now,
I'm sorry to dig it up again, but there seems to be lots of condolences in the chat here.
Oh yeah, my sister passed away over the weekend.
Oh mate, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So sorry. Wow.
That was not what I was trying to generate.
I was yeah.
Saying if I haven't really slept much over the weekend, and also on top of that, 3 trains, 2 cabs to get to that London, and to be honest, we also had the tube lines down. It was a nightmare getting around. But anyway, right. So I was actually setting you up because I thought you were going to be here, but obviously you didn't bother.
I'm so sorry.
It's a joke. I was saying about the PHC. I was saying that there was some really good stuff, but I think some bad stuff as well, a little bit niggly stuff. And I think one of the things is that these events are brilliant, and I wanted you to just sort of tell us there's a couple of events coming up that you're involved in. And I think I just thought it would be a nice segue because I met some lovely people at the PHC. Really nice to meet people. Bless you. And one of the interesting things, when I went to the Healing Humanity, I met a few people from there, and they met me just after I finished my continual glucose monitor experiment. And they said to me at the PHC, "You look really different." I'm like, "Yeah," because I had exactly what I just said to that first question. I had the carb face. I was bloated. I'd gained weight. And it was 8 weeks of carbs, 4 weeks of the lead up to the experiment and 4 weeks of the experiment. Which was interesting because one of the speakers there, Isabella Cooper, I think, she talked about at the PHC, she talked about exactly that, looking at blood markers like IGF-1, insulin, the normal markers. And they did a sort of 21 days in ketosis, people that were adapted, and then they put them on the standard American diet or standard Western diet and looked at their blood markers and then put them back on ketosis. And they could see all the things that you want to, have lots of dropped during that time they were on the standard Western diet, and then they came back up when they were back in ketosis. And what I was trying to show to people, and obviously, the people that approached me and said, "Oh, you look different," is that carbs in just 8 weeks ruined me, and it took me forever really to get back on track. And I would say I'm still about 4 weeks away from where I want to be. Anyway, your events, mate. What are you going to tell us about? There's a couple of events coming up.
Yes, well, we have Spain again, our Spanish Carnival Conference in November, but I was blown away that sold out in February. I think people loved it so much. It was, you see, it's a different kind of thing. I've been to the PHC, and those kind of conferences, I think they're great, but it's a real barrage of speakers, hardly any break in between, and then people are sort of trying to go out in the foyer to have a chat, because it's always nice to just hang out at these things, isn't it? To network and meet people that you've seen on YouTube and that kind of thing. And then also there was some comedy food at the PHC that year that I went. There was like a bowl of quinoa or something, or a bucket of quinoa. Yeah, hilarious watching Sean Baker look at that, But we do events that are much more chilled. It's like the Spanish one. It's in a beautiful monastery. It's like 36 rooms, beautiful swimming pool, gorgeous grounds, and just maybe a talk or two in the morning, maybe one in the afternoon. But you get to hang out with these people for the whole week, and that's nice, because people would rather sit around a swimming pool or sit around a fire in the evening or something like that and chat to these people than constantly getting herded in and out of an auditorium, So I kind of like doing those events. Yeah, that's why one sold out. But I'll mention it here that well, Stephen is actually coming to that one, which is great. So he'll be one of these stars who are going to be in Spain, and Richard, and Anthony Chafee, and Mary Ruddick, Natasha Campbell McBride. We've got Sophia Clements again. We've got some incredible people there, and I love it. I love doing those things. But yeah, that's sold out. But this I haven't ever mentioned before, but I've told Stephen though. But I'm also planning one for March, because it was just so popular. But that's not up yet. I mean, just go to philescott.com, get onto my Substack, and you'll get the notifications about this. But when I set it up, but we've got a tentative yes from Ken Berry as well, which would be nice to get him over there. But the event that I'm really trying to get going properly at the moment is a UK one that we've got in August. Stephen is also speaking at, and Richard, and Sarah Pugh too, who's also been in Spain, and she was there last year. She's absolutely, utterly brilliant. And yeah, we've got both the Unwins. We've got David Unwin and Jen Unwin, because they only live down the road from me. And we've got Nikita Stark. She's fantastic, talking about all the natural birth stuff and the sort of emotional side of things, releasing trauma. And it's called our Ancestral Health Festival. So if you go to my Substack, you can find it from philescott.com, but book for that. But check out the speakers and everything we've got going on. There's camping there. There's glamping. You can rent yourself a real luxury tent with a proper bed in, if you like, and you can cook food over fire pits in the evening. And I'll even be playing there with the Daz band. I just got back from a festival last weekend where I was playing, and that was tremendous fun. So we're going to play that festival too. And again, it's chilled out. It's in a great big marquee in the grounds of a local pub. That sounds crap, doesn't it? But actually, this guy's got a lot of land out the back, and he's a great guy who I've known for ages and played in loads of bands. He has a load of music in there. And he always has gigs and things in the pub. So, you know, you can even go in for a pub lunch if you want and watch bands as well in the evening. But we've got music too in the marquee. And there'll be somebody there doing cold water therapy, breath work, natural movement, all sorts of stalls, and lots of time to hang out with other people who are there. I think what's so lovely about these events is actually in real life meeting people. You know, there's I see sort of friendships growing where people meet each other at these events, and people rebooking year after year. We've sold, you know, far more tickets than we did last year. So, you know, ancestralhealthfestival.com. Go there, have a look at all the details, and get booked, and we'll come and see you. Sorry, you'll come and see us, and it'll be great.
Yeah,
I'm not going to come to people's houses and hold festivals. Don't worry.
Yes. Well, that was obviously a very polished chat that you've rehearsed over and over again. I'm joking.
Yeah,
Phil,
exactly.
lighten up, mate. Right.
All over the place, but there we go.
So Norman, thank you for the super chat, and Jonathan, thank you for the super chat there. A complimentary cup of heartwarming bone broth, £2 and $2 from Norman as well, which is really great. Well, as Richard is not here yet, you could maybe talk about a couple of the questions that we've got coming up here. Shall we do that?
Well, I'll have a go, but you know me, you're the science boffin. Give me something simple to answer, or some autoimmunity issue, and I'll be okay. But
yeah, and you know about dry fasting, that's coming up. So we're going to go through the questions. If you want to jump the queue, by the way, you can do a super chat. That'll be really handy. MJ is saying the sugar diet is certainly picking up pace. Personally, I think it's crazy, not for me. I did a Substack about it, and I called it the Buddy the Elf diet, you know, the Will Ferrell movie, where, I mean, you only really got to look at 30 seconds of him having breakfast and tipping maple syrup over it and putting candy canes in to realize it is one of the most ridiculous, stupid things that could possibly dupe people. 90% of your nutrition is coming in via sugar in one form or another. So you're completely devoid for 90% of your nutrition, completely devoid of protein, vitamins, fat soluble vitamins. Nutrition is absolutely tanked. Then they're idiotic enough to then say, also, we will try to do a calorie deficit, which is stupid in the first place. But even if you believe in calories, you're going to underfeed deliberately your body the amount of energy allegedly it needs in calories, which is stupid. And then you're also going to not give your body enough protein and not enough fat. It's absolutely ridiculous. Right. So what happens? People lose weight. Well, of course they do. Because you're underfeeding it everything it needs. And your blood glucose might look great. Well, that's because you're pumping around a load of insulin. It is absolutely ridiculous. But we've got some supposedly smart people backing it. And I've been told off for saying, well, it is a tool, right? Well, there's a clue in the name tool there for people saying that, because I actually will retort that with my 8-week continual glucose monitor experiment was a tool for me to get some content for YouTube and to show how ridiculous carbohydrates are in your diet. So if you're looking ripped, that is not a sign of health, actually. Now, I'm not talking about bodybuilders who are deliberately looking ripped, but they would all agree when they get to that very low body fat, they're probably not happy. They're probably a bit anxious. They probably can't wait to have a good meal and eat a decent amount of food. And also, they're not doing it for health. They're doing it for aesthetics. And it looks awesome. I'm not going to say it doesn't look awesome. So you've got someone like Cole Robinson doing a stupid exercise program, demonstrating pull-ups, which weren't pull-ups. They're actually pull-ups that you do if you can't do pull-ups, tiny little movements. looking, I'm 61. I don't know how old Cole is, but he looks older than me. He looks terrible. He's begun to speak a bit like that because it's probably rotting his teeth. And it is the most ludicrous craze. Yeah. If you want to lose a ton of weight, there's two things at the moment that you can do. One, you can jab yourself with a fat jab, which has had 82 people die because of it. Slow down your small intestine, open yourself up to feeling hungry. I mean, one of the things is that drug does work as just the sugar diet. It works. It will make you lean, right? And your blood glucose probably doesn't go up because you are going to be pumping out so much insulin, and you're going to get the insulin stacking effect because you're constantly eating sugar. So it's permanently going around your body. Glycation off the charts. You're also adding fruit. So you've got fructose damaging your liver. There is absolutely nothing about the sugar diet. There is zero about the sugar diet that is good, except you will get leaner. You will lose body fat. But it's exactly what I was saying about the fat jabs. That should be the last resort. That's not the be all and end all. It should be all about health. What happens when I coach someone that wants to change their body composition? Losing body fat becomes the side effect. They might come to lose 50 pounds of weight, and they do that. But when we start coaching and they don't lose a ton of weight straight away, they say, I'm feeling so much better. My skin's better. My sleep's better. My joints don't ache as much. I've lost a ton of water weight. Don't look so puffy. Oh, and by the way, I am losing some weight. But other things get better. Blood pressure gets better. They become less diabetic. They're not pre-diabetic. Then they become normal, So, yes, it's crazy. It's not for me. It is crazy. It's a crazy craze. But what do you think of it, Phil?
Well, I think, losing weight is a ridiculous concept, isn't it? Because you want to be losing fat if you've got too much fat, and you don't want to be losing muscle and bone density. So you're definitely going to be doing that on the sugar diet. And for me, it's just really simple. Any other animal, you would say, what does it eat in the wild? And you'd feed it that, and it would be fine. So humans have forgotten, and there is never a time when they eat a load of sugar in the wild. None of the tribes will be on a sugar diet. None of them. And to me, it's really that simple. If you often putting it through that ancestral lens, it's not 100% reliable, but it really can cut through the bullshit. Just like is it Anthony Faisy who was on Anthony Chaffee's show, and he's got that game that he plays with clients. So like, name an animal that, name an animal that eats sugar constantly all day long. Well, maybe a hummingbird or something, but they're designed for it. Name an animal that goes for a jog. Name an animal that eats the rainbow. It's a really good way of just getting through the bullshit. But yeah, I think it's so funny looking at this. I think it's just people going, "Hooray, we can eat sugar again!"
Yeah,
it's even worse than Fruit Saladino's ideas. I think, at least when he uses a whole load of maple syrup and honey, he's actually pouring it on a burger.
Yes.
I remember sending a post of his where he did that to Sophia Clements, and she just went, "What on earth is going on there?"
And I see Tango here, Tango Delta, which is a great name. Just for your information on the sugar diet, they don't instruct you to undereat calories, in inverted commas. That's not true. That's some people. And this is the other thing. There are so many different variations. There are people saying exactly what you're pointing out, Tango. They actually say to overeat. The idea is to get the body to ramp up metabolic rate to burn off excess fructose, which is, I'm not actually talking about your comment now. That is true. That is what they're saying, which is just absolutely ludicrous. It's because fructose, what happens in the liver where it's metabolized, is not about metabolic rate. What happens is it gets converted to fat, and then those fats are now going to be used to give you some of your nutrients. It doesn't really burn off, so to speak. It's just it's a long way round of saying that, but you also will get damage because there will be way too much fat in the liver. But and that's why the triglycerides will go through the roof, which we've seen with malnutrition by Victoria. When you look at her bloods, basically her triglycerides were 229 milligrams per deciliter, where the ideal ranges, and actually, you know what I think about normative ranges, but we're going to use them because she uses them. They don't want to be over 150 milligrams per deciliter. So you become a fat making machine as well. So that absolutely everything's wrong with it because it's not physiology being used properly. And what you just said, Phil, is exactly right. You know, eating just sugar, you don't see it in the wild. It is so crazy. Eating a species appropriate diet is what we need to do. You know, you don't see cows eating their grass and somebody running up and say, well, there's no balance there. You've got to have some steak and then you've got to have some nuts and you've got to, it's just ridiculous. And imagine saying that to a lion. Right, we'll put that gazelle down. You need some sweet potatoes and some turmeric. You know, it's just crazy. To be honest, there's no joined up thinking whatsoever. So should we go to the next question?
I you know, at the end of my sort of vegan experiment in panic, sort of around 2010, 2011, trying to heal in the wrong way, I ended up with sort of smoothies and then tried a fruitarian couple of months. My God, teeth de-enameled, they were really sore. I was, the worst thing was the brain. You know, it went. The brain just went.
Mm.
And
yes.
I got out of it. I remember doing eating nothing but sardines for a few days. And all the mental faculties came back like that, you know?
Yes.
It was crazy. But that is just running on sugar is fruitarianism. And it was a horrible feeling. Probably the sickest I've ever felt. Crazy.
Yes, right. Well, let's do a definite question that you know the answer to. And I'll do a little bit of admin and chase Richard up to see where he is. Vitaligus is just saying, hello, dry fasting for 12 hours daily. Is it dangerous? I eat twice, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. and have Keto Pro electrolytes when I eat. I feel amazing doing like this for 2 weeks. Any downsides? Carnivore for 5 years.
I don't see why, unless you're trying to heal something, you would make yourself dry fast. I think it's just like hunger. If you're hungry, eat, and if you're not, don't. Same with water. So if you're thirsty, your body will give you those signals. Now, I am quite a fan of dry fasting, but only for a particular issue. I don't know whether 12 hours is going to do anything particularly. It's certainly not dangerous, as long as you're not constantly thirsty, because you're never drinking any other time. But dry fasting itself, I think is great. I think a dry fast begins at like a night a day and a night of no. I think any fasting begins at that. People who say, you know, the intermittent fasting amuses me because they go, oh, I don't eat between, you know, certain time in the afternoon and the next morning. And I think that's just between meals. That's a regular gap between meals. That's not fasting to me. That starts at a day, a night, and a day. And I wish I'd known about dry fasting back in the day when I was doing a lot of fasting because I didn't know how to eat. And I lost a whole load of muscle and ended up really emaciated. I was doing long fasts for like 5 days. I think 11 days was my longest. And I got tremendous relief from horrible rheumatoid arthritis. But I wish I'd known about dry fasting, because the good thing about dry fasting is it doesn't seem to lose you muscle mass. And 1 day of dry fasting, as they say, is equivalent to 3 days of water fasting as far as the autophagy and apoptosis goes. And I've had some really good results from it and seen some great results in other people. I can feel Sophia Clements sitting on my shoulder, giving me a slap around the head and saying, nobody ever needs to fast. Never fast. Because she sees weird blood results when people are fasting. But then again, there's weird blood results when people go carnivore. So, you know, would we ancestrally have eaten and drank every day? Probably not. And there would have been times where we'd have dry fasted, where we couldn't find water. So yeah, I think it's a very, very good healing modality. I can't see that dry fasting for 12 hours a day is a great thing to do. I think more useful, I think, if you're doing regular ones, is to maybe do a day a week, you know, and experiment with that. If you've got something real serious, then, you know, that magic number is 11 days dry fasting, isn't it? With the Russian researchers have come up with to really blow up like pancreatic cancer or something. And yeah, if I was diagnosed with that, I'd probably give that a go. But 12 hours a day, I don't really see that sort of dry. Sometimes I don't drink in between meals for that long anyway, and I don't think about it. Just go with what your body tells you, I'd say, unless you have an issue, in which case try Try a 3-day dry fast or something. No food, no water.
Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head, because you just said, how do you feel? And he's put in the question. Vitalitis is a great person, by the way, big supporter of the channel. I feel amazing doing like this for 2 weeks. So
Yeah, do it then. Why not?
Yeah, fill your boots. I mean,
certainly not dangerous. Yeah, certainly not dangerous, unless you're always going against your thirst. In which case, I guess doing that long term would be an issue. But yeah, not drinking for 12 hours is hardly anything really in the scheme of things. Enjoy.
Yeah, one of the things I said, I'm a member of Ben Bickman's Pro Insider thing, and he was really surprised to hear from me that one of the benefits I found about dry fasting, just doing it properly, as in, not eating at all, not doing the meal at 6 and 6 and all this we just said, but let's look at a period of dry fasting, 24 hours, which is just for people that have never fasted. Don't go straight into this. That's not a good thing. You need to do some fasting first before. We're not recommending it. This is all just for information. It's not medical advice. Well, anyway, one of the things he was really surprised at, and it was just my experience, so an N equals 1, when I did my 24-hour dry fast, I found it to be easier to fast from food because I stopped thinking about food and started to think about drink. So can you imagine doing a fast and thinking, oh, I could be really naughty here and have a glass of water? So it changes your mindset a little bit, and it could be a gateway to get people into fasting to try a dry fast and get to that point at some stage.
It is incredibly useful if you've got something to do. Really quickly, my experience with it, I had Baker's cyst from all the years of inflammation in my knee, and one time it burst and it dumped all the synovial fluid down my calf. It was the beginning of 2019, I remember, because it was just before our first Carnivore conference. I thought, oh no. And apparently that can take weeks or even months to reabsorb that fluid. And it's very painful, actually, when the calf's full of it. I went down to the hospital to make sure that's what had happened. And they said, yeah, that's going to take a long time. And I thought, you know what? I'll try a dry fast. I think I did 4 days dry fast. And then I was supposed to go back and see them a week later. And I went back, no pain, nothing. And they said, all the fluid's gone. How on earth did you do that? And I said, well, I did a 4-day dry fast. They said, you can't do that. You die after 3 days with no water. Of course you don't.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's the popular myth, isn't it? That is the popular myth.
I mean, maybe, when they've seen people do that, sweating in the desert, totally dehydrated, walking around, but not sitting at home. No. But it mopped up all that fluid because the body is hunting for water, and it will go and hunt for cysts, pockets of water, tumor cells, whatever it doesn't need. So it gets the body really searching. So that blew me away, and it blew them away because there was nothing, they'd never seen anything like that. So yeah, if you've got a specific reason, that's great.
Okay, we're going to get to Milkman's question in a moment, but I'm going to just share the screen because I want to tell people just about our Skool community. If you like what we're saying, this is what the Skool community looks like. You can join. I'm going to put a link in the chat for you. So I'm going to do that now as well. Right. So the Skool community, if you join, firstly, there's live Q&As. We do one straight after this one at 8 p.m. UK time, which will be sort of maybe 45 minutes, 30 minutes. It depends if Richard answers more than one question. It can go on forever. It could be like a marathon. But and we also do one on Monday. We do an hour. And because we're so it just sounded big-headed, we're popular, but because we're having so many questions and so many people joining, on Wednesday nights we're going to do maybe a live sort of hangout where you can come in and it's a bit more relaxed with questions. The Skool community isn't just sort of like a Facebook thing. There's a course you can do. Well, in fact, there's 9 courses you can do. The more active you are in the group, the higher up you go in the levels. So we got the 19 tips to go in carnivore. We got a thing about thyroid. We got stuff about dairy. There's all ebooks. There's all videos. It's really good. Bits about fruit and veg. That blows the lid off fruit and veg and what the producers are doing behind the scenes, which will frighten you so much. So you see their actual PDFs about how they are picking an apple, and it's not until a year later it's actually on the supermarket shelf. Yes, with your alleged fresh fruit. All from the producers.
Nicely covered in Bill Gates's appeal stuff as well at the moment.
Yes, and we got that's covered in the ebooks and stuff.
Yeah,
We've got protein, problem solving. So it's a really good community. There's other things you can do. So the calendar, just for those, you see, like we've got the live. We did it last Monday, then we did this live. So what we're going to be doing is filling this all up. So it's going to be one on Monday, going to be a Wednesday one, and there's going to be 2 on the Sunday, like today. If you want to join, I will put a link in the description. And I think I get rid of this off the screen now, and then we get to Milkman's question. Richard is trying to log in, but I can't. He's not on screen at the moment. So we'll go to this question, which is a super chat. Thank you so much. Richard's still logging in. Right, Milkman. Dr. Robert Cyrus suggests adding some carbs back in after correcting insulin resistance to avoid issues that are allegedly caused by zero or near zero carb long-term carnivore eating. Do you agree? No. He has no clue about bloods. I really like Robert, and I think what he does is admirable, but he's absolutely atrocious when he talks about blood. It's as simple as that. He doesn't understand the HbA1c. He doesn't seem to understand its calculation. He thinks it is something that you need to take note of and that you need to get in the normative ranges. He also worries about low readings of insulin. Well, of course, it's low reading of insulin because the normative ranges are based on people eating 45 to 65% carbohydrates. We're not eating that amount of carbohydrates, so we're going to have less insulin. When you have less insulin, you become more insulin sensitive. So it's about your insulin sensitivity. Sadly, because he doesn't understand the HbA1c properly, that it is a calculation and it's based on the life of red blood cells, he gets that all wrong. And once you've got that little false premise, once you've got one bit wrong of this puzzle, then everything you extrapolate out becomes idiotic or stupid, and doesn't make any sense. But you make everything fit, and that's what he does. He takes bits of the puzzle and he tries to make it all fit. So I don't agree at all. Insulin suppression is a phrase I think that he has just invented. Low insulin, that's even emotive and pejorative. That's not how you should be looking at it. It's appropriate insulin. Does it do the things that it should do? If you've got a level and you still have muscle growth, you're still surviving, you're still making enough hormones that you start to feel really great and your joint pains are great. Don't go by the numbers, go by how you feel. That's it. So don't add carbs back, because at the PHC conference, Eric Westman did a brilliant slide talking about what is essential. And you know what? When it came to carbohydrates, they weren't even on the list. So they listed every single essential nutrient, and carbohydrates was not on that list. Professor Eric Westman out of Duke University, who's been doing this for 25 years, you don't need carbohydrates, and you don't need to put carbohydrates back in to manipulate a set of numbers where the normal ranges are based on the wrong type of person. We don't eat 45 to 65% carbohydrates. We eat 0 or 5% carbohydrates or whatever. Our bloods are going to look different. And the HbA1c, for people that don't know me, have not seen me before, is based on observation of the red blood cells, the glycation rate. Going back to sugar diet, that's going to be horrendous, and we could talk about how this is going to affect their HbA1c. And strangely, it's going to be in a good way if you believe the normal ranges, because you don't understand the next bit. And you also then factor in the life of the red blood cell. Now, if you have hemolytic anemia and your red blood cells die sooner, you have an artificially low HbA1c. Nothing to do with consumption, nothing bad. It's just showing you that your red blood cells are dying too soon, which you can check with a reticulocyte count. So all of this is provable and simple. Right. So if you have a high HbA1c, and this is proven by people that have a continual glucose monitor doing capillary testing with their actual blood, they come to me and say, I don't understand. The average on my continual glucose monitor is really good. The average from my blood testing, my capillary testing is really good, but my HbA1c has gone up. Well, why is that? You're ignoring your blood. You're ignoring your interstitial fluid. You're ignoring your CMG because some idiot is saying that the HbA1c is the be-all and end-all. Sorry, Phil, I'm going on here on a little rant, and I don't mean to. It's because your red blood cells are living longer. That's it. It's not more glycation. Your red blood cells are living longer. You get this artificial number. It is that simple, and it is provable. And that proves it, by the way, because if your CGM is saying your blood glucose is really good and your finger pricking says it's really good, that is a better reading than some calculation based on some assumptions about the life of red blood cells, which we can prove absolutely with the reticulocyte count. So apart from that, it's really good. But you don't need any carbohydrates, not 1 gram at all.
Well,
Anything to add?
well, it's been 10 years for me now, and I'm still waiting for problems. And I'm wondering, if the Inuit sort of say, "Oh my God, where can we find some carbs?" I just don't think there are any problems really. So I think the problem is probably always that they're missing sugar, and so they want to put some carbs in. That's probably the only problem. Lose the addiction, and that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Julia Rogers, become a new member. Thank you very much. I hope that answered the question, Milkman. Which is a strange name, isn't it? It's lovely. Nancy. Oh, Nancy, hi. She is just, I don't know how to show that comment. Let me just get to that, because Nancy is a great supporter of the channel and everything we do. Hi, Stephen and Phil. Nancy, you know Nancy, don't you? She's coming to your event.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes. There you go. And a $9.99. Thank you, Nancy. Put you on the back foot. We've talked about this couple, Phil.
Yeah,
you do know Nancy.
absolutely. Yeah. They're on the on the list in the spreadsheet. Yeah, I know.
Here's the name. Here's a blast from the past. Once a week man. It's good to see you, mate. And he is a brilliant. We might be able to bring Richard on. He's looking a bit furtive. Well, let's put Richard on. Richard.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
We can.
Good day.
How are you?
All good. I've been trying to get in for the last 20 minutes or so.
Yes. Are you driving?
I am indeed. Live and drive.
Live and always. He always comes in with his little sayings like, "Is the squeeze worth the juice?" or something like that. Anyway, we've got a question here. We've got a question here. We might kick you out, Phil, once we get a decent picture from Richard. Unless you want to add some input to the questions. Right. So, once a week man, does dairy have a fattening effect beyond its mass / calories? And I know why you're writing mass, because you too don't believe in the calories. Yes, dairy has. Right. One of the things that I say, not many people talk about, is odd chain fatty acids. Dairy has a lot of odd chain fatty acids. Phil can talk about other bits of dairy as well, because I know he knows that inside out and back to front. He plays dumb, but he's actually incredibly intelligent. Or he's really good at acting, and he is dumb, but he's good at pretending to be clever. I don't know, one of the two. Anyway, dairy, one of the mechanisms, and people should go into this more, is the odd chain fatty acid. So what happens with an odd chain fatty acid, as the name implies, you can't split it into 2 carbon fragments continually, because you will end up with either a 1 or a 3 carbon fragment, which is what happens. You end up with a 3 carbon fragment, and that is what the liver absolutely loves to make into glucose. So when you eat dairy, that is one of the mechanisms why you put on weight. Nothing to do with overeating it, or, well, there are other reasons, but this is a separate reason. It will be making more glucose from gluconeogenesis because of the odd chain fatty acid effect, 3 carbon fragment at the end. So that is one of the reasons. But there's many other reasons. Did you want to go into dairy and why, for some people, you need to drop it if you're having problems with your body composition, Phil?
Well, the body composition, definitely. I mean, we see when particularly women, when they go carnivore with dairy and they hit a weight loss plateau, then you're removing the dairy very often sorts that out. But my problem with dairy, I think, is the same as Sophia Clements at Paleo Medicina. I think, they put it up with grains and seed oils as the worst thing you can possibly eat. And that really shocks some people. And she's also gets very controversial, saying raw dairy is worse than pasteurized dairy, because that will have more of the growth factors in it. So I agree with the vegans on this one. And I would say that dairy is not meant for adult animals. I wish it was. I could eat cheese all day. I could eat great buckets of cheese without stopping, but it is hyperpalatable. And that is supposed to be for growing a small animal into a large animal. But I see a lot of problems with dairy. And coming from the autoimmune side, I think it's really best if anybody with autoimmunity, and I'll also aim this at one question in the chat here, that if you're carnivore and you have autoimmunity, you have joint pain of some sort, particularly if you're eating dairy, if you're even eating pork, chicken, or eggs as well, this is going to be a problem, at least until the gut's healed. So, you know, what will fix diabetes is not strict enough for fixing autoimmunity, and dairy is a disaster for autoimmunity. So, yeah, definitely, I'm not a fan of it. Well, I am a fan of it. It's the most delicious thing in the world, but it's not. It does me no good at all. Even butter. People go, "What about fermented dairy? What about ghee? What about?" No, it's all dairy. Leave it alone. Yes. If you want more fat, put a whole load of tallow on something. You'll feel a lot better.
Well, I mean, butter is dairy. You know, and people often forget that. Rich, are you able to talk, Richard?
Yes, I can talk.
Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, I agree. I was just sitting here enjoying the two of you chatting, to be honest. Yeah, driving my way out of London, listening to a good podcast. Yeah, it's look. I tend to put things like cheese into a slightly different category. Butter, cheese, yes, they're all dairy. Milk, I'm dead set against. We're not designed to drink milk past the age of infancy, and we're the only animals on the planet that drink milk from another mammal. Milk is designed to give us growth when we're born, when we're newborns, but past the age of infancy, after that rapid growth phase and those mTOR activations, IGF-1s and so on, that requirement isn't there. We shouldn't be consuming milk. Now, cheese, yes, same category, but they are far less problematic. So for the less strict ketogenic or carnivore person, you can still thrive consuming butter and cheese. And I think cheese is quite often the lesser of two evils, because quite often it's the cravings when we gravitate into this way of living that make us fall off the wagon. And when we fall off the wagon and we eat a load of crap, then we write everything off until Monday. You know, I've ruined the weekend, so I may as well just not stick to it, and I'll just smash pies and pasties until Monday. Monday comes, and then you tend not to start again, and you're back at the beginning of your journey. So cheese, the body wants protein and the body wants fat. Now, quite often it's difficult to tell the difference between a craving and hunger. So if you are actually hungry, you will be satisfied with a piece of cheese or an egg, for example, protein and fat, or a piece of beef for that matter. Cheese is quick, it's accessible. You can chop it up from the fridge and you can consume it. So it could be a means to maintain the journey. So I think it's a tool, and I think it works for a lot of people. Casein is a compound found within dairy, which is incredibly problematic. As Phil said, it causes intestinal permeability and therefore can lead to a whole host of autoimmune issues. It is far less problematic in butter and cheese than milk, but obviously still problematic. And it does seem to be less problematic within the carnivore community. So it almost seems that once you've healed the gut, once you've quit the wheat germ agglutinin, the phytohemagglutinins, and you've healed the gut and you're no longer consuming medications and alcohols which are causing damage to the gut, then casein from cheese and milk does seem to be less problematic. But the overconsumption of even A2 dairy can be problematic within the community if we consume too much.
Yep. You've been cut off in your prime, Rich. I think we've covered it anyway. We'll go into the next question. I hope you can hear me, Richard. Run for Remy has asked, been keto for a few months, almost zero carb. Ketones very, very low in blood now. Good or bad? Also in breath testing. Is that worth it? Or should I abandon all testing? Oh, what a great question. There's so much in there. Do you have a view, Phil? Because you've been sitting there quite quiet, looking pretty there.
I'm just thinking about a massive, great lump of Parmesan or something, and how nice that would be. It's very addictive. Yeah, I'm very simple with this. I think if you test, I think like in paleomedicine, when they're testing the ketones early on in somebody's healing journey to make sure that they're well into ketosis for that kind of serious healing, it can be useful. But I've checked it now and again, but I can't be bothered. I just think, how do I feel? Again, it's just that simple. How do I feel? Do I know if I'm in ketosis or not? I probably am most of the time, but I'm really not asked about it. But I think, you know, I get you to answer about the breath testing, because I'm really not sure which is the best one. I just know that the P strips are not particularly accurate, and after a while they don't really show the right thing anyway. So the sort of pinprick on the end of the finger, the blood test for ketones, seems to be more accurate, and I've done that a few times. But yeah, I'm not bothered. Just enjoy your food and feel good, and don't worry about it. What do you think?
Well, Richard, you're the keto pro. Clues in the name. What do you think? Richard? Right, Richard's not there for the second. Right,
He's
so
signaling with an intermittent spinny wheel.
Yeah, oh, is it at the moment? All right, a spinny wheel. Ketones very, very low in blood now, good or bad? Right. Well, it depends on the context of why it's low. I wouldn't sweat over it. I think Richard, the reason I asked Richard to answer before me is because Richard notoriously talks about the fact that his can be 0.2, 0.3. He doesn't sweat over it. I mean, he's very ketogenic. He's been doing it a long time. You know, he's very lean. He looks great. You know, his brain function is obviously top notch most of the time. So, you know, it's a testament to his context. He looks great, feels great. He's obviously running a big business as well, and his low ketones don't bother him. He eats meat, and therefore should maybe have the right level. The appropriate level is what I would say. Going back to my 10 years of doing blood testing, it's always about the appropriate level, not the level that some arbitrary normative range is telling you. It's all about context. You know, I've been doing my Keto Mojo, sort of trying to mimic a continual ketones monitor by doing lots and lots of finger pricking. And I use that to sort of debunk Cole Robinson on another point where he's ripping into Sean Baker about the fact that his blood glucose was 80-90 milligrams per deciliter. He's therefore actually running on sugar. It's a sugar diet. It can't be in ketosis. So I measured my blood glucose at very regular intervals over a 4 or 5 day period, and proved categorically that was a load of tosh, because my ketones were sort of 1, 2, they went up to 5, then they went down to 0.5. It depended on activity, when I'd eaten, everything, and it can be really flexible. Breath testing, I don't think is really worth it, to be honest, because don't forget that it's wasted ketones. Same with urine testing, that's wasted ketones. Blood testing for ketones is the best thing if you really want the data. But I think going back to how you look and feel is possibly the most important thing when it comes to this way of eating. You know, like Phil said earlier, you don't see animals going out with their apps. You don't see a lion picking up his iPhone and saying, right, I've eaten a gazelle. Was that kicked me out of ketosis? So I think let's go back to nature. I think that's great. I want to thank people for super stickers. Thank you, Kayla. That's really nice of you. $4.99. The Feral Grandma, which is one of my favorite names. Your rant has value, Stephen. Maybe I'm ranting more tonight because of the situation I mentioned earlier. But anyway, thank you for that. Sorry we didn't get to all the questions. Obviously some technical glitches, people turning up late. I mean, come on, that was bad. And no problem, Phil. We're speaking tomorrow to do a proper professional video about the event. Please make sure you got a list of all your guests and all the links all at the ready, so we can put it into a really nice posh version of what we just did, and we'll get people to it. I think that's the thing.
That'd be great. Yes. So
yes,
I shall see you tomorrow.
Have you enjoyed coming on?
It's been a tremendous pleasure. No, I love it. I love these things. I love these. And there's some real funny stuff about accurate peeing in the chat. And I'm seeing all that as well. It's very cool.
Now, we're doing half an hour in our school community. Do you want to come over and join us there and again talk about your festival for the people that are in our group?
I could do if you like. No problem. Yeah.
All right. I'll send you a link. So I did put a link to our school community. And the reason I asked Phil is because, you know, come on, you can get half an hour extra, Phil. It's just worth joining just to do that. And hopefully Richard will be able to sort out his link for our half hour over at school. And of course, you can still join if you're not watching live, don't forget on Mondays we do a live Q&A for an hour in the school community as well, and we're going to be adding a Wednesday one as
Where
well.
has he
So,
been?
sorry,
Our Tomcat has just come in. He's not been here for 3 days, but he's just staring at me like he wants some food. I think I must have to feed him. And then I'll jump on the link.
he's been doing a dry fast. Anyway, to
He must
YouTube,
just-
thanks for tuning in, and hopefully see you next Sunday when it'll be a bit more sort of level, richer to be online properly as well. All right.